New hot topic. Why is it that when my daughter sports her afro, she receives more compliments from Caucasians than blacks? It's so sad that we can't appreciate and relish our own natural. Trying to transition out of my relaxer, and then after I cut my hair into a teeny weeny afro, I remember having a similar experience where I felt like all the white people in my life were very encouraging and very supportive, and they had positive things to say. But it was the black people that would tell me things like, you know, why did you do that? Oh my goodness, it'll never grow back. You'll have a hard time getting a job. They couldn't tell me I would have a hard time having a man because I'm married with 5 children. This was a great question, loaded question. You know, when I was in college, you know, go Big Red, I studied another topic, but as an elective, I took a lot of African studies classes, and what I learned, perceptions come from our historical experience. When I was in college, I read excerpts from people's journals. I studied the history of film and blacks in film. I studied, you know, the biographies of slaves and ex-slaves. I studied their perceptions and what was going on in their lives as they came up. And initially, even the slave passage and what happened, you know, I put up 400 Years Without a Comb, excerpts from a YouTube series, and got virtually no response. I don't know how people responded to it. I'm sure it was shocking to a lot of people because they'd never seen anything like that before. It's ugly, and a lot of people don't want to think about our history in that way, much less show it to our children. But truly, I brought all of that to say that this generation, we don't know our history. If you think about the slave passage and the people being chained and in below deck and not much less given an opportunity to go to the bathroom and keep themselves clean, what their hair looked like when they came off the ship, what people's reaction was to their hair, which was probably, it was matted. You know, there were instances I read where the hair was solid with things in it, not just the hair itself, all matted and tangled up in stuff in it, infection from being dirty, and how people responded to them and how they thought of themselves, and being confronted with another culture and what they look like. I mean, the history is really encourage you to go and read and learn and understand. But when I started Cherish My Daughter and we started talking about how black people feel about their hair, I got a private message from a friend of mine wanting to know how could this be? You know, she's white. She wanted to know why do you think that? I look at your hair and I think it's beautiful. And I had to just in a small paragraph try to explain the history. I'm having a hard time even finding a coherent way to say it to you now in a short video with my 9-minute limit on YouTube. We see the fruits of the things that have happened in history. We don't understand it, and we make ignorant assumptions about why people believe, feel, and do the things that they do. But then again, when you hear the testimony of people that grew up in the 50s, the 60s, you know, even the heyday of the Ku Klux Klan, which was before then, like my mother-in-law or in her generation. I'm saying my mother-in-law because my family is from Haiti, so our experience was a little different, not necessarily better, but different. You know, you hear people say things like, you know, if I wore my hair like that, I would have received a lot of negative response from the white community. So there's being in the north as opposed to being in the south. So it's rich and it's loaded. When we did our Egyptian history segment with homeschool, I homeschool my children. We studied Egyptian history, and the kids were tickled by the fact that during the time of the pharaohs, If the Pharaoh didn't like something that happened in history, the historians just erased it from history. And my kids were like, they erased it? That just seems so crazy to them. But I think in our society today, I'm not saying that people erase certain aspects of history, but I think that historians can be biased and tainted. And I think that the history that we teach our children, I think it's incomplete. I think it's incomplete. And I think that particularly the experience of the African American person is told in such a way that I think a lot of the great contributions that we've made have just not been included. And we see people trying to fix that with things like Black History Month. But really, if you study American history, the first time we really hear about Black people shouldn't be the story of Crispus Attucks, when, you know, which is one of the stories that's told about what spurred the American Revolution. Really, slaves were here right when the colonists came to establish the first colonies. They needed somebody to work the land. I say that to say I don't ascribe to a conspiracy theory. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I study the Bible. So I believe that a lot of things have spiritual implications. And so I won't say that there are people sitting in a dark room plotting and planning things, but I do see that there is a purposeful omission that has occurred in history, and as a result, I don't think a lot of us know our history. I don't think a lot of Black people know our history. I don't think a lot of Caucasians know our history. And as a result of that, when we do things with our hair, or we do things, you know, we have a certain behavior that can directly be linked back to things that have happened in history. If you know it, a lot of them may not have any idea where we're coming from or what we're talking about, and say we're pulling a race card when really we're pulling a history card. To be that I studied in college just plain horrified me. So to answer your question, from my perspective, yes, true that I have received more of an acceptance from Caucasians about wearing my natural texture, even compliments, and disbelief that I would ever want to do anything besides wear my natural texture. But I think a lot of that has to do with a lack of a connection to the history. And for us, even if we don't know our history, we're experiencing the fruits of our history. They don't have that same burden. I'm grateful for the support that I receive from them, but I also understand that a lot of it could be from blissfully being unaware of what has come before. And I think we should be aware of that ourselves. But what do you think? What has been your experience? Do you feel that you get more support from Caucasians and more flack and resistance from the Black community? Please keep it respectful. Our kids are watching. Put your comment down below. Let me know what you think.